Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, where I've entitled it Preparing for Give to the Max Day. And if you're not familiar with Give to the Max Day, it is a day that is dedicated to helping support wolves by donating to the International Wolf Center. And we know it as Give to the Max Day, but we also term it as Give to the Wolves Day, and that is Thursday, November 13th. And at that time, you can make a donation on wolf.org, and 100% of your gift will go to the support of the center's programs and operations. If you make a donation on givemin.org, you'll be eligible for an additional $1,000 or $10,000 drawing to the center as part of that organization. Either way, your tax-deductible contribution will be doubled by matching funds from our board, and we would like to acknowledge our board of directors who this year has achieved 100% participation, personally reaching a goal of $35,000 in matching funds. That means all gifts made online at wolf.org or givemin.org on Thursday, November 13th will have a one-to-one match up to $35,000. And this is an incredible resource for our wolves here, and we certainly appreciate the support that we get through the Amazon.com wish list, which we are eternally grateful for the wolves' medications and nutritional supplements to be provided by people who are dedicated to these individual wolves. And as you can see here, Denali is caching a beaver and moving that cache around the exhibit. And beavers are an investment. We want to make sure our wolves have the adequate resources necessary to consume, but also food resources that stimulate wolf behavior, and one of those main wolf behaviors is caching, and that caching behavior is again pushing debris on top of a food resource and tamping it with their nose. And if you've ever watched your dog do that, you can probably see a little bit of wolf in your dog when it comes to caching behavior. This is whether you're a poodle or a wolf, you cache pretty much in the same manner, pushing with your nose and tamping it to keep it in place. And so those are just some of the resources that we use here at the International Wolf Center. Obviously, the straw beds are something that we use to keep Luna and the rest of the pack comfortable as the winter approaches. We're getting snow right now as I record this video, and it's going to be not going to be long before we have snow on the ground and have certainly temperatures reaching those conditions that utilize more calories and require more food resources. And here is Bolts taking advantage of that Denali cache. Bolts is a good 2-year-old going on 3, and he's at the bottom of the rank order right now, which we've kind of been talking about for the last several months. And he is always going to take advantage of opportunities to get additional food. So we are feeding a little bit more frequently. We're feeding on Saturday night a large whether deer or large volume of beaver. And this was actually a Wednesday feeding, or Thursday feeding actually, where we brought additional beaver in. We had some work done on the roof, and we wanted to distract the wolves, but we also want to build up a little bit of calories before the colder weather sets in. And this weekend we're going to get some probably temperatures near zero, and the wolves have a great winter coat. They're prepared for it, and certainly helping them increase their calorie input during this time is something that we can do to make sure that everybody enters the winter in good condition. So this is Aiden. Aiden is chewing on the favorite thing. You can hear probably the crunching. That's the beaver tail, and the beaver tail is a fat resource, and it has kind of scales on the outside, fat on the inside. And he's doing a little threat display there to Bolts, not too much. Bolts is very respectful of Aiden as the pack leader, so Bolts shows very little signs that he's going to challenge Aiden for a beaver. And you may notice here we have several beaver available, so these wolves do not have to fight over one food resource. When we feed a deer, they're going to have to be a little bit more dominant about getting food resources, but when we feed beaver, we have plenty of beaver to go around, and so that allows them each to have their own food resource and to cache it or to consume it as they wish. So that's something that we, like I said, we always monitor those kind of things to make sure that the wolves are well taken care of. And sometimes we like a little diversity, and Bolts is a younger wolf, so as I said before, he's a little bit more timid, and so I like to try to give him something that he can guard and possess and eat quickly. And he does like deer legs, and so that's what you're seeing here on this clip. he's up on top of the hill feeding on a deer resource or deer leg. Luna is not all that engaged in it, and that's because Luna had spent the night on Saturday's beaver. She actually had 5 beaver that we fed to the pack, and all the wolves kind of got to eat, but Luna then took it upon herself to take all the beaver and consolidate them into one area and then keep them or guard them from the ravens. So it was definitely a Luna show after the Saturday night feeding where there was a lot of meat left, but Luna was possessing it all and actually not allowing the ravens or her fellow packmates to eat. So that's why we increased some of the food. That's why you see Luna not very interested in food at this particular time. That's one of Luna's traits. She's a very possessive, dominant female who possesses food resources and not necessarily eats them all. Although she is carrying a nice, she's certainly filled out as an adult and carrying a nice amount of weight, and she's physically very active. But it is one of those things that might be related to her early beginnings where she had some nutritional issues that may have made her react differently to food resources, but now she's seeming to do fine. Her blood works fine. She's certainly matured into this very striking young adult female who is our pack leader. So that's Luna. And then over in retirement, Grizzer also gets a beaver. Actually, Grizzer's been getting not only beaver, but he's been getting some deer fawn as well. And that is because he has that opportunity. It's a little bit cooler. We don't worry about the meat spoiling very much. And so he's had a lot of opportunities to cache things. And he's quite comfortable. He certainly has not been spending as much time in the east side den. He's been very focused on activity in the yard. We're winterizing right now, so that means, things are being moved, benches put away, wheelbarrows, prepared for winter, gates being, secured for winter. And certainly that's created a lot more stimulus for him, so he kind of stays towards the front of the exhibit and wants to keep an eye on things. He's been having visits from Tina, the dog who visits him. And we have a surveillance camera on him on the far side that we kind of keep an eye on his coming and goings out of the east side enclosure, because he does have 3 areas that he can roam. And so we want to make sure that we have a good surveillance video capabilities, and you see him obviously coming out of the east side and lying down. I think one of the other issues that we face with Grizzer being a sole pack member is that he doesn't have the support or the reinforcement of being in a social group. So when he's facing things that are a little intimidating, he needs to deal with them on his own. Obviously, if wolf care staff are here, he looks to wolf care staff. Sometimes he'll look to Tina, but in the middle of the night, he needs to deal with that on his own. And so I can see here in this surveillance video, something's got his attention. He picks up the smell a little bit, and he immediately starts kind of a little stress jaw movement, a little bit of yawn, and certainly something that's kind of caused him a little anxiety. So that is a drawback. Obviously, we prefer to have wolves in social pack settings, but for Grizzer's case, that's not an option. So we want to be mindful of that, and that's the benefit of surveillance cameras, and we have many, many, many dollars invested in surveillance cameras. And here's another view of our surveillance, which is the What's for Dinner program. I saw Aiden come across there with a beaver, Bolt's following behind, sniffing and trying to share resources. As we said, Bolt's is a little timid, so oftentimes he tries to eat with the other 2 males as an opportunity. Aiden on the left-hand side is doing a face wipe. That's a cleansing or kind of a grooming behavior as we see them eviscerate the beaver and take the organ meat out. They do get a bloody face, and so they'll do a face wipe in the straw, or if this were snow, it would be called a snow plow, where they get down on their front haunches and kind of push the snow with their noses the whole time, going back and forth as a cleaning mechanism. But this is, like I said, what the view is for the public. The What's for Dinner program is a public program every Saturday night. And we're certainly toying around with the idea of doing a webinar live from the pen on a What's for Dinner night, certainly with less narration from me and maybe just an opportunity to listen to the sights and sounds of the pack interacting, and we'll be, let you know when if we pull that off. And certainly a deer feeding carcass in the middle of a sub-zero winter night would be something worth watching. It gets pretty exciting here, especially when it comes to food defense. So we'll keep that in mind. But again, we gotta thank you for all of your support in watching these YouTubes and providing us resources to do the best job we can in caring for these wolves. And we look for your support on November 13th on the Give to the Max or Give to the Wolves Day. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.